Yeah, that doesn't look like anything on camera.
And we're live. Welcome. I am the Battle Gamer, your host on TableTalk, where we talk all things tabletop. I'm joined by my co-host Alex.
What's up? It's me,
the Glue Boy, and Jake from Wisdom. Check, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Wow. Sorry. Did you ask me to introduce myself?
Yeah.
Oh, good lord. I'm screwing up my sound too much. Okay. Yeah, hey, I pretty much just explore anything that's Pathfinder. I love Pathfinder 2. It's freaking amazing. It's a huge playground. So I do archetypes, builds, guides on anything I can think of. And recently I did a first look at the archetype that came out in the High Helm book.
Yeah, I saw the video. It was really good. The Stalwart Defender, which is one of my favorite prestiges, I believe it was, from first edition.
Yeah, so. Dwarven Defender originally in D&D, but then, yeah, Stalwart Defender in Pathfinder. And I looked at the Pathfinder 1 version, and they basically just ported the whole thing over. Like, they didn't change a lot.
Yep. Mostly because a lot of its mechanics are just the same, only tweaked to meet the new, standards.
I hope they can do that for more, because there's still some Pathfinder first edition stuff that I'm jealous of.
I want Inquisitors back.
Yeah, so bad. They look so fun.
What are they about, killing casters?
No, Inquisitors are... They would be like a martial class that has... One of their biggest thing is like branding. They can brand an enemy, and it gives them bonuses against that enemy. And they're essentially like proficient at taking out singular targets. And their biggest thing in first edition was that they could take teamwork feats and then use them by themselves, but count everyone else as having teamwork feats.
Weird.
Teamwork feats back in the day, 2 characters had to have them for you to benefit from them. But the Inquisitor had the feature to just ignore having someone else and just treat everyone else as having one.
That's interesting. That's like a lot of features. Like in D&D, there was collaborative casting. You have to have multiple people casting the same spell and you get a definite effect, and they moved that to rituals, but they still kept that ability in some archetypes. Like some archetypes don't need other people.
To some degree, for sure. It's some of the abilities, I mean, and it was a lot more granular back in the day, but it was really cool. One of my favorite Inquisitor types was the Beast Caller, because their whole thing was they didn't have branding, but they instead gained summoning spells as they leveled, and whatever creatures they summoned gains the benefit of their teamwork feats as well.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that could be fun for combos. Well,
it was particularly nasty with wolves, because you could summon a bunch of dire wolves, and then one of the teamwork feats was to give you a better combat attack to trip people when you're using your teamwork feat. So your wolves are just tripping people all the time, and everyone had attack of opportunity. So if an enemy went prone, they're going to take a bazillion attacks of opportunity when they try to stand up.
Yeah.
I used to have like a very, I want Inquisitors back, because I love more classes or more archetypes in the game. But ever since playing Wrath of the Righteous as an Inquisitor, now it is a full-on, please give me this. This is so much fun in this game. I want to do this in 2nd edition, because that is my shit. I am a massive fan of single-target DPS. I want to be the guy that like holds off the boss from the others as like they do other shit.
Or Defender.
That's full on my play style. The closest I've gotten was a D&D campaign for Out of the Abyss we did, and I had my paladin solo fucking Bahamut. No, which one was it? It was
No, it's
Goat Demon Minotaur.
That's Bahamut, or
Baphomet.
Baphomet. Yeah, there you go.
I as a paladin was just holding off Baphomet, just swinging in major smites with like my 2 sentient holy blades, and it's just holding that back. It was super fun, and then those moments of like, no, you look at me, I'm your threat. Don't look at the healer. Look at me.
Was it Sentinel, or how did you do that?
For which part?
Oh, keeping him in place.
It wasn't a keeping in place thing. Like, it was more of a narrative thing we did because specifically it was, if you move, I'm gonna opportunity attack you, as I already have my vow of enmity, so every attack for a minute is an advantage. I will eventually nat 20 like level 5 smite you if you just ignore me. And just that pure like, this paladin is putting so much damage, I have to deal with them, and that it feels so good. And any way to do that in like second edition, I want to do. Which means like we'll have to look at Stalwart Defender. I've heard cool things about it. I haven't looked into it as much.
I will say that my video is not brief on it, but at the end, the last 7 minutes, I think, I'm comparing Sentinel to Stalwart Defender, so you get like my idea on both, how they contrast.
Oh yeah, I'll have to watch that.
It's a really good one. So what have you been up to, Jake? What's been going on lately with you?
Like personal life?
Yeah, just whatever you want to talk about.
I pretty much don't do anything except focus on creating things for YouTube and for gamers to be attracted to. I'm want to these are plans. I haven't like written up anything formal for it yet, but I'm wanting to create a set of videos, basically a mini course on how to use psychology and communication skills at the gaming table.
Sounds like a very hard video to make.
Well, not for me. It's like easier than gaming. Frankly, I don't have like in-depth knowledge of Pathfinder 2 for like the last 10 years. I haven't been playing it. But I have a lot of spread out experience, which has helped me understand Pathfinder very quickly. And most of my experience in my life has been spirituality, psychology, and communications. Like taking multiple courses, seeing therapists for all those things.
Yeah, just saying, like, it would be hard to kind of convey, I think, in a way that you would think a lot of people would understand.
Yeah. Especially if you have, like, follow these steps. Well, some people don't work that way, so what do you do then? Oh, and aside from that, I'm coming out with more build videos, of course. Storm, what the hell am I working on? I don't even remember right now. Oh, that's right. I'm trying to focus on currently Firebrand's book review. I know it's old, but I told them I would do a book review, so I kind of should. And after that, I'm going to try to move into a High Helm book review, and then the next book that comes out, Rage of Elements, I'm going to try to do a book review on that too. So I'm interspersing all of those with interviews with the design teams.
Oh, that's cool. I'm going to be working my butt off with Rage of Elements like I did with Treasure Vault.
I'm so excited to see Rage of Elements stuff. I'm so curious. And also just, it's very nice ever since getting into second edition to just be excited for every book release, even if it's an adventure path, because there's going to be something cool that I'll be able to use in every book they drop. And Rage of Elements, that's going to have kineticist in it, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Which is even more. I want to
That's the whole point of it.
metal is what I want. I want to use that. It looks so fun, just the descriptions I've heard.
And you can do combinations too, like earth and fire makes lava, magma, kineticist.
Even better.
Why would you want to use psychology to cheat at a TTRPG? That's not what I mean. I mean to understand the people that you're working with and how to get your communication across to them and the different, frankly, reactive barriers that you might run into. So it's sort of like forewarning you and just educating you on how to handle crap that comes up. Not to manipulate people.
Yeah, because, I mean, at the end of the day, you're playing a very social game that has a lot of people, and there's stuff that comes up from just doing something very social. That some people would like some at least help, or at least a place to vent about shit they have to deal with.
Yes, the venting especially. When I was like 19, I had a friend come over repeatedly. It was just like 3 of us, 2 of the friends and myself, playing a usually D&D, but a variety of different games, and I would always bake cookies. That's not the point. he would get so irritated when things didn't go his way. And like if I said narratively, your paladin wouldn't murder the children in the orphanage. No, my paladin does it. No. Like eventually he would just punch the table and storm out. You gotta know how to deal with that crap.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like everyone has at least some stories of like the problem player at their table. I know I've had some, and then the situation where you have to tell somebody like, hey, that we've told you repeatedly that we don't like this behavior and you need to not play with us anymore. Like, yeah, everyone has to go through that, and just having that like that bit of just someone else affirming the thing you might already be thinking is incredibly useful.
Good, yeah, I agree.
It definitely, when it comes to like tabletop, I feel it's highly underrated for just the getting people outside of their comfort zone as far as like interactions are concerned, because a lot of people don't feel comfortable doing things, you know, like socially in real life. So having a character who's not quite as bound by those constrictions allows them to, you know, build confidence, be able to try different kind of social scenarios that they probably wouldn't be willing to in real life. And there's a lot of people I know who have taken what they've done in character and kind of applied it loosely in real life. And it's just something that sometimes you don't know exactly the kind of person you are because you haven't been put into a lot of scenarios. So placing yourself in your character's shoes can even build things like empathy and stuff like that, you know, really feeling for your character or another character in the moment. So I definitely do think it's an interesting topic for sure, but for something as diverse and varied as tabletop, it's a messy subject no matter what your angle, I would feel like.
I agree. I have one video about that already on my channel. It's fairly short. It's normally only for patrons. That's why there's only one video about it on YouTube. But I've been doing them for a little while. I just haven't gotten much review about it because, like, I don't have a lot of people. Airlorn Wolf, I want to get back to you. I didn't even realize that was you, man. Like, the text on my screen, I just couldn't read it. Hi. I didn't realize it was a joke. Sorry.
You know,
No, it's all good. Sometimes the color it chooses for the names is just this terrible blue color. Sometimes it's a very easy to read pink. I don't know why. It just changes every time.
Yeah, it's like dark blue on a gray background. Why is that even an option?
For real.
I have no idea.
It's also fun how you mentioned the using tabletop to socialize and all and get more comfortable, because literally what I did, I met Cam during Adventures League, where we became friends, and I only went to Adventures League for like 2 reasons. Of like, I'm DMing for my friends at home, like, you know, I kind of want to play actual tabletop so I can get a good understanding of how to play the game and like run it better. And then on the other hand, it was like, you know, I am an incredibly introverted person with like a single small friend group. I should just do something. And I did. And now I have a lot of friends that play tabletop. I'm a lot more confident socially. And
oh yeah, your videos show that.
Yeah, it's the mix of tabletop and film school beating all of my social anxiety out of me. So now I don't care about like talking to a camera, or say for example, like what I've had to do for film school, knock on strangers' doors asking if they can film on their property.
Yeah, that'll get you over your stage fright very quickly.
Super quickly.
Have any thoughts on a ranged investigator build? Was hoping to know about the options. I know that people seem to think that the ranged investigator works better than melee.
I mean,
sorry, go ahead.
I've done it. I don't know if it works better necessarily. Investigator is just it's a more cerebral class. You have to understand how it works in order to get used to playing it. And so a lot of people don't like it because they think of the action tax with devise a stratagem. And that's how you get your strategic dice and yada, 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 yada. The The investigator is a finesse or dex based martial class is what you can look at it as, because all their strategic strike stuff besides the bonky stick, the sap, is you're required to be either finesse or agile. So you just build them dex based. And there's so many archetypes you can go into to just make them a proficient martial character that you'll need devise a stratagem. But devise a stratagem is also just something that, as long as you're participating in the scene, constantly looking for clues and pursuing leads, I mean, it takes a minute in game, which is not a lot of time at all. When characters are doing their 10-minute sit and rest after most combats, you can be looking for tracks, looking for clues, investigating the surroundings, and you can be like, okay, recently there are some footprints of some goblins in this room. It's like, okay, I pick up set and I do that one, and then when you go into your next combat, you're probably just gonna run into one of those goblins. This is the most recent, one of the most recent tracks that you found, and then free devise a stratagem, extra strategic dice, also the ability to pick and choose when you strike. But I will say, in our Age of Ashes game, I have a investigator who went gunslinger and assassin, and the really good thing about investigator is they know what they're going to roll before they make a strike. So if the enemy doesn't know you're there, you can keep rolling devise a stratagem until you know you're going to hit the enemy, and you can start the combat off with a critical strike.
God damn.
That's great.
That's right.
I was going to bring up guns because of the deadly extra damage on a crit, but I didn't think of the hiding too.
Yeah. You can just wait as long as it's reasonable, in 6-second intervals. Where's the enemy moving? The GM can always work with you to make it not seem so cheesy. But there's many combats where we waited until my character was like, okay, this is like pretty much a guaranteed critical hit, instant deadly with a gun. Plus I took away the sniper, so I can just reload and hide. And then we're at the point where we're level 19 now. We're almost done with the adventure. And he has legendary sneak, which is broken because you can hide anywhere. You don't need to be covered or concealed to hide when you have legendary sneak. So literally at any point in the battlefield, covered, reload, hide, and he's hidden, you can stealth and become undetected. And then the enemies don't know where you are. And I play him as a very, he's methodical. He waits for his opportunity to strike. He's not a DPR character, but he's a character I also took, because this is really fun, interesting interaction. I don't know what they planned. I took Barbarian Dedication, and I took Furious Finish. And what Furious Finish does is you can instantly end your rage and add the number of rounds remaining to your damage. So, you can devise a stratagem. If you know you are going to crit, you can rage and then Furious Finish with your gunshot, because it says you make a strike. It does not specify melee strike. So you can get really angry and shoot your gun harder or bow and deal 10 extra damage
while you're raging.
No. You devise a stratagem first, then rage, because you know you're gonna hit, and then Furious Finish.
I'm really angry at that guy 300 yards away!
Bang!
Yeah, how do you even add that extra damage?
I don't know.
It's such a peak doesn't work this way. You get told that at any gun range, but I picture just you have a rifle and then you just shove your shoulder forward with the bullet somehow.
Yeah, it's really dumb.
You're pushing the bullet extra hard.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's the great thing about Devise Stratagem. It's so good when you know how it works and its implications. It's not a simple, this is my action I'm required to do damage kind of skill, because it's not it's not like spell striking, you know, it's not just I need to recharge to spell strike kind of deal. It's an action that you use in the right opportunities, and just don't forget that you're already a martial class. You get master proficiency. You get the same proficiency increases as other classes do. You get a dumb number of skill increases because you're essentially the rogue, only the brainier one. And so, you know, ranged investigator, good, but also the frickin' athletic swashbuckler investigator, also really good, because you can add your intelligence with the athletic, I think it's called athletic stratagem, which allows you to add intelligence to your trip, shove, whatever maneuver rather than strength. And you take swashbuckler and get a status bonus while you're in panache. And then you just become the ultimate, put them in a chokehold style character. And known weakness is so good because you can literally, when you devise a stratagem, you can note like the enemy's highest or lowest saves, so you know whether to trip or shove or grapple or whatever.
Do you like investigator at all? I can't tell.
It's my favorite class.
It is a cool class. It's one that I've constantly looked into because I'm like, do I have anything super fun I'd want to do? And it always ends at just, no, I want to Sherlock Holmes, like, discombobulate. That's all I want to do. Just, like, prep that fight beforehand, and then it goes perfectly in the moment. Is like, such a fun, like, feeling for a tabletop. I love the idea of investigator. In practice, I don't think I'd fully mesh with it. Like, their kit is so fun.
From what you've said on, I think a stream with Cameron, maybe it was on one of your channels, that you really like being the big beefy. Oh, you said it during a session you guys were playing.
Yeah.
You really like being the big beefy hard hitter.
I do. That's my shit. I'm a DPS fan at heart. Most of my builds revolve around that, unless I have a character idea, and then it's like, well, I have to go with the character. I can't go with my heart. My heart says beat the shit out of every enemy in the room. Sometimes you come up with a really fun wizard character, and you're like, well, I guess I'm playing a wizard today. Which I'm currently playing in our live play. I have an evocation wizard that I'm doing my best to be a pure blaster caster.
You're doing a good job, and like, you know, people help occasionally too, but you're doing well, and it's fun to watch.
It's good. I'm slowly but surely learning how magic works, because the whole like prepared spell slot thing is a leap of a different style that I'm not used to. Like having a spell that you lock into a slot is weird.
Vancian casting doesn't make sense to me. I really like the mana point system. GM Rufus on my channel talks about it, and he created a mana point system so that you just have a certain number of points depending on your level and your stats to spend on spells.
Yeah, that's more my speed, because it's like any video game you've played, or even like, I mean, D&D does it that way, and it's just, it makes more sense to me.
Airlorn, I have to agree with like the logic of it, but I don't care. It's funny.
I mean, you could even argue it from a what do you gain from this situation? You know what I mean? Furious Finish under most circumstances is kind of a loss, because you end rage immediately, which means you can no longer rage for the rest of the combat. And you become exhausted, or fatigued. Fatigued? Exhausted? Whatever the condition is called. Which means that you are more likely to suffer failures on saving throws. So, you know, it's
Yes, but...
No, go ahead.
Yes, but did you notice, correct me if I'm wrong, but the multi-class archetype for Barbarian states that when you stop your rage early or when your rage ends, you are fatigued. It doesn't say you can't rage again unless you are... I mean, you can't if you're fatigued, but otherwise you could. So you could take, what is it? Cathartic Mage? There's a couple of them that... No, sorry. Celebrity. To remove fatigue on yourself.
Ah, see, now Celebrity says you don't suffer the effects of fatigue. It does not say you are no longer fatigued.
Oh shit! Oh, I misread that.
Yeah. So,
This
Uh,
is what I expected this stream to be. A lot of, but there's this ability that does this, and there's this archetype that does this, and I'm like, I'll take your word for it, I guess. Like, I like Pathfinder. I am not an expert in it in any way. The most archetypes I know are the ones for the videos I've edited for Cam. Those are the ones I'm good at.
Well, that makes
Yeah.
sense because you have to listen to it, what, 4 times at least?
Essentially.
But yeah, I did look that up. It's still not bad because not being fatigued is still good, or at least not suffering the effects of fatigue is still good. Plus, you know, celebrity can add a lot of fluff and flavor to your character as well, so it's definitely not a bad choice.
But it's not the power move that I wanted. Ah,
No.
your argument's invalid.
Okay. But you know, so it's just like you can look at it as, does it make logical sense? No, but also raging causing you to like do a bazillion more damage. Like, okay, when you look at how rage damage actually works, right? Somehow your character is generating, like if you're an actual barbarian, your character is generating more than a standard person's weapon strength if they like a plus 12 low end for fury, right? That's more than your average person wielding a great sword in damage, right?
That's
Let's
more
say
than
a
a giant,
plus
isn't it?
2 and a d8. That's 10 damage max if you're lucky. And a barbarian just somehow generates more power than that in their strikes, in addition to the damage they're already doing. Like, kinetic mass doesn't work that way, right? But it's a game. We just take that into consideration. So
Well, I like that about Pathfinder 2, especially with the martial classes. I've argued in other game systems that you need to work magic into the martial classes in some way. And so they've worked the fantasy into it by just giving them extra damage. And I just think of it as, it's a magical world. They're calling on a magical rage. I can't connect with it on a, like, experiential level, but I understand philosophically.
yeah, and that's even a good point to make. Most besides Fury have anathema. Who enforces this anathema? Does your character feel like they're not being barbarian enough and thus
Bad
no longer get
barbarian.
their barbarian benefits? Like, it's very silly. So, you know, this particular interaction with Furious Rage or whatever is good, and it's good for a good like initial hit. But in combat, in most situations, it's just never going to come up as like an actual scenario. It's a you roll a device stratagem. Oop, I got a lucky net 20. I guess I'll use this, and you get one really good hit. Which honestly, even then, is still not even gonna do more damage than like a barbarian with a weapon for their normal rage strikes do anyway, because it's only plus 10, which is less than the least powerful instincts. So
It really has to be, you know, you're going to end the fight with this hit. Is there some way to magically know, like, what percentage of hit points somebody is, or can you, like, roll medicine for that? Like, in previous games, there was a spell called Status. No, there was a Nahal's Reckless Wild Magic spell that gave you actual numbers about somebody's hit points over their head.
not in this game currently. There's no official rules for it either. A lot of old hats in the space use bloodied, which is an enemy that's at less than 50% health. You'll say they're bloodied. I play virtual tabletops, and my players can see the current health of the enemies, and it really doesn't change anything. There's not like, people think it's like, oh, it's just extra data you can use to like cheese the system. It doesn't change fights, in all honesty. It's not anything like, damage is not so like specific in Pathfinder that you have different abilities that do specific levels of damage for certain costs or benefits or anything like that. Is the enemy alive? You're gonna strike it, or you're not gonna strike it and knock it down. You know what I mean? Furious Finish is just one of those abilities that like in most situations isn't even that good, because it's not a guaranteed hit either. It's just you strike, and if you hit, you do extra damage. So, like, it's a gamble in and of itself. Now, granted, if it's your first hit in the round, you have a really good chance more often than not, as long as your character is, like, within the parameters of the encounter. But it's not necessarily, like, that big a deal. And like I said, in this particular situation where my guy shoots a gun really, really hard. It's funny in concept, and mechanically speaking, it doesn't cheese any rules because it's like it cheeses it any more than the fact that devise a stratagem technically allows you to roll for hits without actually making them first, allowing you to crit an enemy before they know you're there. So
It's similar to 5e advantage on demand. It's sort of cheesy, but that's just how it's built.
Yeah, and the honestly having like that information even on HP for enemies never feels like it's cheesing a system. I don't get that argument fully, because like at the very least, I am not in that fight I'm not looking at a goblin that is like heaving, bleeding out. Like I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at a little token or a mini, or like just thinking about a goblin in my head, like any of those three. So like I don't want to waste a resource on a creature that has like 10% of its HP like remaining. Be like, yeah, I forget its HP. Disintegrate. Like I don't want to blast that. I'd be like, oh yeah, firebolt or something to finish it off. It just kind of lets me connect into the actual situation and planning that maybe my character would have. Oh, that guy's like looks like he's on death's door. Maybe I should go finish him off real quick.
That's a good point. There's something to be said for what your character knows that you don't know, like playing an investigator in general.
yeah. And so, it's kind of along the lines of if you're playing with the kind of person who's just looking to cheese the system at every corner and min-max every like opportunity, they're playing a very different game than what tabletop is intended to be.
And they're gonna cheese it no matter what.
Yeah. Because like if they have a calculator by their desk, are you gonna take their calculator away? If they're good at mental math, are you just gonna be like, hey, stop thinking those numbers? Like, if someone wants to know their health numbers, they're gonna do it. I've done literally everything as far as like, do the players know the health? Do they not? Everything like that. It has never changed the experience at all, because if they're roleplay style players, narrative style gamers, they're going to not care or not meta knowledge something anyway. And if they're game style gamers, then they're not going to really care if the creature's heaving or whatever. Like, they're not going to care for the narrative or like the suspension of belief, of do you know this creature's HP or not. They're just looking at it as an encounter to beat. And again, like I said in Pathfinder, there's not really lesser strikes to greater strikes, you know what I mean? Like, there's been some opportunities recently in our Riptide game. We saw an enemy had like almost no health, and we're like, hey, wizard, use Force Bolt on them. One action, just boop them dead, because Force Bolt's really good. It's just instant damage, and, it's really good for finishing enemies off. But that's the thing, right? It feels much better to finish an enemy off that's almost dead with it than it is to just do some extra damage on an enemy. So why not let the player have that, have an enemy who's almost dead and just boop them dead with the Force Bolt, He already used a spell that round anyway. They're going to use a spell that round anyway on probably multiple enemies. So it's like, there's some people who really get obsessed with it's not even the rules. It's like they're obsessed with what they think is like just in tabletop, in a sense. So they're like, no, it's got to be this specific experience you got to know, or all that kind of stuff. Like you got to play by the rules. You can't metagame. You can't do all this kind of stuff. I'm not gonna tell you this stuff just because your character wouldn't know, and that's fine. And if that's the kind of game you want to play and that's the experience you want to have, that's perfectly okay. I can only speak to the experience I have, which is I've done it all. I've been GMing for 20 years, and like whether the players know or don't know never has changed the actual experience.
even then, if you're not actively policing it as a GM at the table, like players will find ways. Like the one I've seen and done the most is the hey fighter, how are you feeling right now? Well, on a scale of 1 to 129,
Yeah,
I'm
like
feeling
Airlorn says in chat.
yeah, I'm feeling a solid 37. It's like, yeah, that's what I've done so many times, and it's like that just is gonna happen anyways. So might as well just have that like that just taken away, like the need to just cheat around it. Because like I mean, it's also if you're trying to have that gaming experience, like every fucking video game, like RPG has health bars, has all that, so you can easily track where things are. Like that's a norm of it. So I've never understood the idea of hiding health bars. Because also, even if you just don't even attach a number to like an enemy hit bar, and you just show like the green bar going down, it feels really cool.
Yeah, I've tried in my last session. I think it was my last session. Adventure I was running. I used uninjured, 90%, 50%, and 10% of hit points, so that they know if it's like 10%, one hit's probably gonna kill it. Half its health, okay, I've been doing something. 90%, it's barely wounded. So it's just useful in general, so if I have to throw out numbers, that's what I'm going to throw out.
Yeah, and so, you know, I mean, I'm definitely more of the opinion of, if you do something like virtual tabletop, show the bars, not the numbers. Just because when you put numbers on it, it feels a lot more gamey, but when you have a bar that you're hitting, I feel like it removes a layer, but still gives you relevant enough information to deal with the situation. But that's just
also
a
make it
personal
easier on the
feeling
GM.
Well, I mean, like in Roll20, you can just turn the numbers on or off, so it doesn't really matter. But
also, it feels so cool when you like get that sick nat 20 combo ability, and then you just see the green bar just whoosh like all the way down or something. It feels so cool. It's like you get to keep that element to it.
And it's also more suspenseful if somebody's like, okay, I throw a fireball at him. Okay, that did 20% of their health. Oh, shit.
yeah, sorry. Can I change? I don't even know if I can change that. I'm going to click this, and it's going to remove the chat, so I apologize. Can I change?
Because every color for the text is blue.
I just refreshed the page, and no. Well, yeah, I refreshed the page, and it's different shades of blue. Easier to see.
Yeah, all I can do is... It says change background color, but that's not the background color I have. That's bizarre. Let's see here.
I want to say to what Keenan said before. Yes, it's fairly easy to find a way to be really good at range damage in Pathfinder, but I've noticed that it makes things boring for other people. Like, okay, I'm 300 yards away, he's at half health. Okay, well, the fighter's still halfway to him. So it's cool that you can do those, yes. I agree. That's neat. But functionally in a game, it just doesn't work that often.
But yeah, hi Flameweld, how you doing? And yeah, so what Airlorn is saying is there are RPGs out there that do damage. I know one of the ones I did. White Wolf does actually quite a bit with their games. Like when you hit certain health levels, you take penalties to your
Wound
to all
penalties,
your rolls. Yeah.
Deadlands does the same thing.
There's a lot of games that do it. I think it's kind of a mixed bag. It's kind of the thing of you're just throwing more math into the game when you do it, because you got to account for how much health the enemy has, and now you got to subtract more numbers from what they're doing. If you like a more granular game, you like that difference, sure. I like it more when it's something along the lines of like the enemy gets a standard type of debuff situation. Like Clumsy would be a good one, or Enfeebled. Like you could do hit locations on crit, and certain parts can be damaged. You could stupefy an enemy. You hit them in the head too hard, you know, that kind of stuff. Because that's a very easy condition to like understand, and it's already in the game anyway. So, you know, but there's a lot of ways to do it. It ranges. But hey, you know what? We've done this a good amount of time. Let's talk about our builds. Let's talk about the builds that we like or are interested in, rather than talking about like general game concepts. I've, I guess, already gone with my investigator, sharpshooter, sniper one. So
that is a nice build.
It's a really good build. He's also a legendary in athletics, so he has cloud jump. In the last encounter we did, he just was in the trees like a ninja, jumping tree to tree silently and sniping people from the trees, and no one could see him. So it's great.
Damn.
Sounds like he's sort of a monkey. Is there a brachiation in this game besides the actual Venaran race ancestry?
Soon there will be awakened animals.
Oh, right. So you could play a monkey.
You can literally play a monkey.
I'm so excited for the awakened animals. I have to have a singing goat. Yeah,
well,
you go.
I have a very short build concept that I'm still working out, and this will actually work really well to have people tell me what'd be good here. Because I was trying to build this, but I built it up to like level 6. I have a summoner build that I've been trying to flesh out. We talked about it last stream, where I am currently working on a summoner character that uses the Devotion Phantom Eidolon. That is kind of a melding between Talion from Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor alongside Guts from Berserk, in that idea of a character born under really shit circumstances, where it is a grave orc with the Tombborn background, where he was made and like conceived for some fell purpose, and in turning that got bonded with a spirit that he's kind of been raised by, trained by, and now as in adulthood wishes to help him pass on to the other side. And it's essentially a martial artist character that has like a fighting ghost that'll do shit with him alongside, like grab somebody as you can beat his ass, or specifically when I was imaging this, the Shadow of Mordor thing, where you parry someone as Talion, and then like there's another orc behind you, swings at you, Celebrimbor pops out of Talion's body, parries the strike, punches the orc in the face. Like 2 people fighting in the same body that I think is super dope. And going with like the martial artist as a free and archetype pick, and just making the best punch orc that I can possibly make with the Eidolon stuff. You know, this is the basic stuff I have so far of like picking the wolf stance for martial arts, having my Eidolon get trip and the shove features, tandem strike, follow-up strike, stuff like that, tandem movement, the basic things. I just always don't know if there's something really cool that I just don't see, because I'm really bad at finding those like really weird multi like feat combo stuff.
Yeah, one thing, not necessarily related to the build, but something I've heard recently that's actually really cool. Battle forms as a summoner, because you're a summoner, you can get spells, and battle forms are really good if you could play a not super combatty summoner, and then battle form tandem strike with your Eidolon, and your battle form is always like a step under martials of its level. Essentially, it's like 1 to 2 point difference on hit or whatever. You get some temp HP, and you can instantly become a combat character. And in addition to tandem strike and act together, you can do a really good just like double martial build with summoner, just with that tandem strike obviously, and battle forms in general, which is really cool.
Let's track down the battle forms then.
It depends on what tradition you have. Divine has some really good ones, but also Arcane and Occultism have like dragon form, and you can do double dragon combos on enemies because there's also a dragon island. So
Yeah, because the one I'm in currently, just looking at it, is a cult. Seems to be the tradition I've landed in for this summoner.
That makes sense for the right vibe.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could do something similar to this. I am building a character that has Clockwork Reanimator and is a Shadow Sorcerer. I think it's Shadow. No, it's the Aberrant Sorcerer. And they are a tiny pixie. So they hide inside a corpse and fire their spells out of it. So maybe if you're playing an automaton and you could have one of like your Eidolon or other pets inside you, I don't see why not.
I'm just trying to go through Archive of Nethys spell list to see if like what other things could I get? Because yeah, the main thing too is finding those spells that don't require like a check or a saving throw or a roll, because I had to put my points into strength, con, and dex. So, sadly, charisma can't be too high, and that helps actually, because I know the summoners don't get proficiencies to make them as like cool of a martial character as I might want. So having the battle form would make up for that.
heroism.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
Oh yeah, I immediately heroism is the one spell I have in my Path Builder spellbook. The moment you said it, I was like, all right.
It will literally make you as good as another martial in whatever you're striking, especially towards the end game, because it becomes +3 and +4 depending on what level you're at. And the best part is you're a summoner, so you know what you can do: buff yourself, act together, get your Eidolon in place, or have your Eidolon strike the enemy, and you can even tandem move first, then heroism while your Eidolon strikes. Like, Summoner's so good because Act Together is just such a dumb, good, efficient like build, and the Eidolon and the Summoner are both characters, like competent characters. So it's just really solid. Like, a lot of people are mistaken when they think that like non-combat classes like Alchemist or Summoner can't do well in Martial, because the classes innately do have stuff baked in that allow them to bypass those downsides. Granted, it's a few more steps, sure, but they have other features that martials don't. A fighter is just always gonna be one of the best like martial characters out there in like a flatland all terrain kind of situation, but an alchemist can get as good as like another martial almost, and also just be an alchemist and have a solution for every problem, because they're also better than wizards because they have their whole alchemy book just available to them at all times. No picking spells, no certain slots, no nothing. As long as you know the item you want to make, it's available to you at all times. So actually, in our Kingmaker game, I'm going to be making an alchemist, because a DPS alchemist, because people are so certain that alchemists are just not good DPS characters, and I'm going to make one, and I'll give my honest review after that.
Persistent damage seems like a good way to get there, so I don't see why you couldn't be a good DPS character.
Well, it's not even that. It's Quicksilver Mutagen. It gives you an item bonus one level higher than characters at your level typically do. Like at level 3, it gives you a +2 item bonus to your dex-based attacks. So while a normal martial character is striking with a +1 weapon, you're striking with essentially a +2 weapon, and then you can get Provide Lighting Mutagen, and you can just very easily continuously like consume your mutagen, regain hit points, take another Quicksilver mutagen. Maybe not Quicksilver every time, because it does actually damage you, but there is a infinite health revitalizing Juggernaut build for Alchemist, because Juggernaut gives you temp HP, You lose that temp HP, then you metabolize it. You gain a bunch of HP back. It's a D6 per 2 item levels, I think. And then you just drink another Juggernaut Mutagen, and you gain a bunch of temp HP. Rinse, repeat. It's really good.
It's fun to play an impossible to kill character.
Sounds like a fun character, and I do not envy you, because that sounds like a lot of moving parts that I wouldn't understand or mesh with.
Yeah,
As
and
someone
that's
who doesn't understand how Optimus works.
yeah.
Well,
I
yeah,
mean,
it's a complicated class anyway, like Oracle.
It's really complicated.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You fought him. You fought him in Riptide. That's Brandmaster
Yeah.
was exactly that.
I mean, that's a super cool build. Like that idea of the alchemist who's using an almost like a combat suit that injects him with drugs for like fighting. It's very dope. Objectively cool. And like seeing it, I'm like, damn, the results of that are so dope. It's a shame your class feels really incomprehensible to me when I'm trying to read into it.
Maybe if you saw it in play, it wouldn't be as hard to understand because then you're interacting with it and you see it with its moving parts acting.
That's pretty likely. At the very least, the most alchemist I'd play is the Mad Bomber style because, I mean, who wouldn't want to play that? Just chucking bombs, like giggling to yourself. Like the Demolitionist character is always fun.
Totally. I made a Goblin Demolitionist that basically does that. It's a fun idea.
I think it's like an entry level fun build, but it doesn't take away how fun it is. Like just because it's like a lot of people come to that idea of Alchemist, I'm gonna play the Mad Bomber, but that doesn't remove that it's a sick like build and a fun character type.
Yeah, and it's really easy, and you know, as people who've seen Persistent Damage knows, Persistent Damage is nasty, and
I love damage over time stuff in other games.
And Quick Bomber, a Quick Bomber just only requires that you stock yourself up first, and that's it. So, you know, and eventually you get the ability to just make multiple mutagens with a singular quick alchemy. So, like, it's just really good. But people only look at DPR, and people only look at flat combat scenarios that don't have objectives or terrain or all kinds of stuff. So, you know, it's like hypothetically, yes, fighter does more DPR than any other class, but there's a lot of situations where a fighter can do nothing, and all that DPR means nothing. And then there's also group DPR, which is important to maintain, and when you're playing a selfish class like fighter typically, like there's just a lot you're not doing to keep the party going other than trying to kill the enemy as quickly as possible, while a character like the champion is really good at keeping the whole party going, because just their reaction plus lay on hands is just very, very, very good at making the whole party stay up for longer and giving the healers less to do so their healers can do more damage. So, you know, and a lot of that is just either reaction or a singular action. So it's just really good. But Jake, what kind of builds are you cooking up? Any builds you're interested in?
Well, for my personal style of play, no matter what, you're going to be able to roleplay, and that's the most important aspect of it to me. So I'll put that aside for the moment. In combat or exploration, the character that I have the most fun playing is one that sounds boring to a lot of people, and you can't really do in 5e, and that's protecting your team. Like, I really liked the Hallowed Necromancer Life Oracle Psychic build, so you can reactively put shields up on other people and reduce their frightened and radius.
That's really good idea, actually. I really like that.
Be a lot of fun.
That's because my favorite class in Final Fantasy XIV is the Sage, which is a barrier healer attacker style of class, and I love playing healer support in games. I love playing supports in general. I like anything that makes me have to think about what I'm doing other than just hit the damage buttons in the right order. And playing healer is always really, really fun. That does sound like a really good super support build. That sounds like it would be a blast to play.
I bet so. If you haven't watched the video on it, let me know what you think after doing so. It's called the Holy Oracle on my channel.
Okay. I think, was it that one? Maybe I'm thinking of a different build. Was there like a Holy Spirit one or whatever that you did? Or
Yeah,
is this
that's
the same one?
It's the same one.
Okay. Yeah,
I just
I
didn't
did
know.
watch it. I watched it when we first started talking, actually, because it was one of the ones.
Oh,
that
yeah.
you sent to me.
You mentioned that.
Yeah. No, it does. I mean, I can't remember all the specifics at this moment because it's been probably a couple. It was last month. Man, it feels like a couple months considering all that's happened in the last month. But yeah, no, it did sound really good, and it you know, Oracle can be very interesting if you understand how Oracle works.
Another one that's a little tricky because, you know, I can't agree with the like sounds fun to play only because I don't like support stuff. I'm Mr. DPS. However, that sounds dope to play with. I would be so happy to have that on my team. There's another build that especially I want to mention, but it's technically not my build. Cam, that like Ash gunslinger build that I
the Spirit of Ash gunslinger build, because you play gunslinger and it's mostly a narrative one, but you play gunslinger and then you take the new Ash mystery that came from Outlaws of Alkenstar, I want to say.
Dude, in the new book, High Helm, there are magic weapons, including a gun, based on ash and fire.
Yeah, and gunslingers get a fun ability where they can just pour alchemist fire straight into their gun and do extra fire damage on their strikes. And the Ash Oracle gets abilities that makes enemies progressively more and more weak to fire damage.
Yeah.
And you are like this. It's the Spirit of Gunsmoke build. That's what I called it. And it's just Ash and Gunsmoke, and you're this kind of Spectre of Vengeance style character who, burns those who need dealing with and hellish fiery ash.
So Ghost Rider, you're playing Ghost Rider. Okay.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's a build that I wanted to meld because for the longest time, since both of them were dropped onto me, I wanted to play this. Because at the same time, I think, they dropped the Gunslinger and then the Wandering Creature background. Typical cat behavior. And I'm a big fan of two things: gunslingers and heavy Christian imagery. Like, both that shit is my jam. Meld them together, and I wanted to play that like wandering preacher whose congregation a long time ago was killed by a bandit like group or something, and now he's hunting them down one by one, like enacting his vengeance. And adding it to that, because I also just love that spirit of vengeance that is horrifying as it comes like approaching you, is so immensely fun. So I'm gonna steal that build, and I have to struggle with like whatever next game we do. Which one do I use? Martial arts summoner or Ash gunslinger? And that's really difficult.
Dude, you should okay, not should. I'm gonna run a Deadlands game at some point. You would love the Blessed character class because it's all about being somehow connected to a holy source, but it's in the Wild West, and almost all of them are just Christian preachers that have had enough.
Yeah, I need to play Deadlands. It's a game that's been floating around our friend group for a while, and every time our friend group has played Deadlands, like since I've been friends with them, I've been like busy with other shit. It's like
that sucks.
Thing where it's like, we're doing a Deadlands game, and it's like, hell yeah, I am occupied that day. I cannot join, and there's no alternatives. Okay, I'll just sit in the sidelines. I know
Deadlands is hard to jump into as well because it's always centered around some sort of investigation.
Yeah, that's true. My second ever character that I played was a a Georgian blessed saint of Saint or paladin of Saint George blessed character in Deadlands, and he had one arm and a big sword, and he was a tank. I took Spiritual Giant, that made him have like a bunch of wounds. I took Sand, which made him have a bunch more wounds. And he was unstoppable, and when he consecrated his weapon, he did a massive amount of damage. And he only had one arm. And I miss games that have disadvantages. They're so fun. I love playing with disadvantages.
Yeah, merits and
Yeah.
flaws, advantages, disadvantages. I freaking love those. That's why I like the White Wolf system so much. Well, part of it.
Yeah. And
The best
I remember-
tabletop system ever, Anima Beyond Fantasy, also heavily uses advantage and disadvantages.
it does.
The best tabletop system with no problems at all.
Which is a joke, because it's a game
Oh, I
that's
figured.
horribly flawed.
It's a game that is, if you know what you're doing, you can just create a god at like pretty low levels. Like, if you want unironically fully, you could just create Goku and play as Goku with all of Goku's powers.
Yep.
That doesn't sound
easy.
very fun.
It's very fun, but it's like it's goofy, and there are also just things like for the DM that are really interesting, like rules referring to tables that don't exist.
Yep. Yeah, like a disease table. It's just like, you make a disease on the disease table, and you look at in the book and there's no disease table. Or impact table in the core book until they eventually errated it. Oh god. And the errata was only in Spanish and not in English.
Yep. Yeah, it's a Spanish system. I am currently in the official Spanish Anima Beyond Fantasy Discord because I asked for some help on subreddit for a video I was working on. Still kinda. I haven't mostly scripted out. I just haven't gotten around to it because Warhammer is my one true love, and I know so
Yes,
much
it
about
is.
it. It's so easy to understand. I do research, but I don't have to do too much because I know it all.
You are the picture of fanboy obsession on your channel.
Yep, exactly. And then I have a scheme that I've been cooking up of making a video, a really good video on Anima Beyond Fantasy, getting in the good graces of the Anima dev as he's working on the second edition of Anima Beyond Fantasy, and trying my best to corrupt him to double down and not fix the problems, just make them worse and make things stronger. That is what I want out of that system. If not just for my own fun, just to like give that to Cam.
It's just a good way to make sure you never play second edition anime.
No, please.
I want to refer to chat because there are a couple of things that I've been wanting to comment on for a while, but we just keep like babbling in rounds.
Yeah.
So Flame Loud, I wanted to say that sounds frankly like something that I would hate playing, but a lot of people would love to just blow the hell out of people with that. In fact, like Colby, D4 D&D Deep Dive, that sounds like something he would make, just optimal to tear someone apart.
I'm assuming you're referring to the Precision Ranger burst damage gravity weapon build, which is a very common one, especially if you throw in Crossbow Expert, because then you can just do extra damage with a crossbow, and it hurts. It hurts like hell. It's really good though. Very solid. I think it's really fun though, because running reload I think is one of the best feats in the entire game. There's nothing that will tell me otherwise, because there's nothing that feels better than firing a shot, moving, and reloading at the same time. Like, mechanically speaking, that works so well in the game. We actually had
And the imagery is awesome.
in our Shadows That Laugh game, we had someone who was using the blunderbuss, I think, and it was blunderbuss, or it was some rifle. It was like a double barrel rifle, and they had sniper, the sniper's covered reload, and also running reload. So he would fire a shot, duck, and stealth in that round, and so every round he's popping out of a different corner and doing extra damage, because way the sniper does extra damage when an enemy is flat-footed to your strikes. And you could load both shots into the gun to do extra damage, spending both your rounds rather than just one. And it was really, really good and really fun. I like that kind of I like a methodical play style. I like that working with the team where your teammates are kind of going in, keeping the enemies distracted, and you're going around setting up your really big hits and then doing a really big hit. Is it a good DPR? Probably not, in all honesty. There's just very simple ways to just put out nuts amount of DPR with less action load, but it feels good. And that's how you should play tabletop, is whatever feels good.
Totally. Play out your fantasy. That's why you're here. Like, you could play a video game if you just want high numbers.
I mean, even if you like
Although
high
I have to
numbers.
admit, I love making the most stupidly complex character for like no reason. Like the character in 3rd edition that technically you could run so fast that you light the air on fire. There's no point in that, but so what?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
I'm
They've
sorry,
definitely-
Lauren. That's locked on me. What's flying with legendary stealth?
It just, you fly, and because you don't require cover or whatever, you can just be over everyone on the battlefield and then somehow disappear with stealthing.
That is fucked up.
That's so funny because not to bring this back to Warhammer, but for the Warhammer art like tabletop RPG like Wrath and Glory, if you're playing a Raven Guard, if you have an ability that specifically says you can proc a stealth roll when you're doing something strange. Like you can just it's really vague of like you can stealth in weird moments, and one of them is like when you're flying, so you
With
can
a
just
jetpack.
with a jetpack. So like I picture it peak like a Skyrim with the stealth 100. You're in the air and you just crouch, and then suddenly everyone loses you.
Yeah. It's very safe. To be fair, it's level 15 feet, and it's at like level 15. People, I don't think understand, like, canonically in the world, a level 15 character is considered a legendary character. Like, that's like the base level for legendary characters in the setting. One of my favorite characters, Rainmaker. He's this Matangi orc. Like, he's called Rainmaker because there's rain orcs. He has lots of children. Lots and lots of children. And he's like a level 16 sorcerer or something like that. And he's regarded as a legend who's felled the demon ape god of the Matangi. I can't remember at the moment. The Charaka worship them. I can't remember at this moment, but yeah. But level 16, legendary character. Like level 15 and up, you should be powerful legendary characters because most things in the world can't deal with you. And I think that's fine. You know, like, if you don't like games that get that crazy, then just don't play games to level 20. Have shorter campaigns. Make the leveling slower. You can definitely pace it out to have the exact experience you want really, really easily, actually. Go to milestone so that the players get exactly as strong as you want them to. Like, people always get upset with these, there's a lot of people who would vehemently despise flying with legendary stealth.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But so what?
Right.
It's
there
a
are
level
people
15
that
ability.
object to everything because they're dicks. Like, it doesn't really matter if somebody objects to the thing that gives you joy.
The people that say that the always the comment I think of the guy in your comments, Cam, that
The
said
monk one.
monks shouldn't be in your game and like they don't make sense in the setting. You shouldn't be able to roundhouse kick a dragon with the same damage or like the same efficiency as like a wizard, which I disagree. That just to me sounds like you're not fun, because that sounds awesome to like roundhouse kick a dragon in the face.
Then what makes sense?
Yeah.
Can you not have beastkin? Can you not have flesh warp? What's sense to this
It's
person?
just again, it's kind of relates back to what I mentioned earlier, the just players who think that the setting needs to have a proper way to be played.
Mhm.
Like, I want this to be everything is rational, everything makes sense, and it just can't because it's a magic setting where magic
Right.
can-
Even in World of Darkness, that's set in theoretically the city you're in. There's vampires and mages and werewolves. You can't have perfect realism and have it be fantasy.
Yeah.
I wanted to interrupt because I think I've missed every time this poor guy has said something in stream chat. Do you see Hector there?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
I didn't read any of these. I'm sorry, dude.
Hector's
looking
one
at
of
the wrong
our
screen.
regulars.
I'm new
so-
at this. Okay.
Well, typically as well, whenever we have a guest, we like to give the guests as much time, to talk as possible. Not very much as a comment. You're free to as always, go to the comments and look at what people are saying and respond to them. Feel free to do that as much as you can. But whenever we have a guest, I try not to focus on that because, you're here with us for a limited time, this time and hopefully sometime in the future as well. So,
I don't
like
see
to
me as a
respect
guest,
that.
although technically I am. We're friends. I don't need the spotlight. Shut up, Kim. I'm talking. It's fine. And yeah, I'd love to be back. You guys are cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna read these though, if you
sure.
guys
Go ahead.
haven't. It's kind of sad, but understandable. Monsters and PCs aren't weakening as they're injured. Yes, I totally agree. Deadlands we mentioned has wound penalties unless you're undead. Oh, they still have wound penalties. I really like that, but it doesn't exist in Pathfinder or D&D. Have either of you or anybody in chat added that into your system, your games? How, if so?
I mean, it could be really easy, as I mentioned before. Doing enfeeble, clumsy, or stupefy on crit. That's a status penalty, and it considers you took a very serious
Oh,
damage, and
I see.
it affects you some way, mentally, physically, however you want to dress it up.
I think I didn't
Um,
fully understand that earlier. This makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of adding that to 5e or something, and I'm picturing all my 5e games with how heavily of the D&D 5e ping pong that is
Yeah.
coming up and down. Because we have a variant of that in the D&D game I'm in, which is basically it's 5th edition, heavily modified by our DM. One of the things he does is whenever you get knocked unconscious, you aren't technically unconscious, you're just kind of injured, and you can still do some very basic actions. But once you're up and the battle's over, you will have to make a con save, and you will get an injury that's based on how bad you failed it. Either if it's a minor or major one, something like, oh yeah, your arm's broken. Now you're if you're gonna make a weapon attack, you have a debuff to get that fixed, or you have an internal bleeding. Make sure you get that dealt with. One of your ribs is poking into your body where it shouldn't, or hey, you lost your eye. Stuff like that, where it's at major injuries. So that version I've seen work and had it work with good effect, because it also gives our doctor character who does surgeries a method of doing their work, but it also forces us to gather some resources and find safe locations to do it. In that instance, I think it would work great. But if during combat I'm half health, because that just kind of happens, and then I get a debuff to my spellcasting, I'd be like, that's a bit sad.
And you have to have a DM who can adjudicate it in a balanced manner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's some DMs I trust with it, and I think my friend could come up with a method to make that work for his game. I don't think he would, because I think he'd argue that his injury system works basically the same, for what that would achieve. But I feel like he'd find a fair way. There are other DMs I've played with in my time where no, they wouldn't. No, they would not.
Yep.
Yeah, and Hector Vivas is right. Troop monsters are affected by their hit points because there's multiple of them. So when you kill them off, they get weaker. Which I actually really love troop monsters. I hope they add more. Because they do have some, but I would just like more generalized ones. It's funny because Mr. Rex was always harping on the fact that in Pathfinder, goblins and such just are no longer dangerous to you because they're no longer high enough damage. They can no longer actually injure you.
You talking about the one with Ronald in it?
Yeah.
That was very simplistic. Like, I don't think that should have been on YouTube. He was just sort of talking off the cuff.
Yeah. I could go on, and I did go on and on about Mr. Rex's video. But troops answer that, because you can have just enemies by volume, and you can even, ramp up the HP, give them extra damage, and then as you whittle them down, it becomes, less and less of a threat as there's less and less of them, which is really good. But Hector did make another really good point. He said, but outside of that, I understand why there isn't weakening of wounded PCs/monsters, because it could very easily throw out the balance. If it is like a boss encounter, you're dealing with like an enemy that's 4 levels higher than you, every point really counts in those situations. And if the boss, which is way more likely to crit and get you low, is going to start like giving you penalties to things, it's gonna make that already difficult fight substantially harder in general, even with things like flanking being taken into consideration. So Pathfinder's math is so
aspect of the game.
Tight, and having something that's very situational based on level of HP is just not good. Also, I like wounds affecting characters in systems where wounds matter, but in games that have healing, it doesn't matter as much, because it just gets, well,
that depends. Like in Deadlands, they have healing as well, but they only have 5 wound levels to each area, period.
Their healing is once every 7 days, standard.
No, it depends on the healer. Like the shaman healing can heal you up as long as they're willing to scar the shit out of themselves right away.
Well, there's that, and hucksters can do it as well as they're willing to draw cards, which, could result in a backlash. It comes at a cost.
Or the head exploding in lightning.
Yeah. Each one comes at a cost, and they're very typically like set to certain levels of what it could be, and depending on the level of wounds, it also takes longer. Like, I think if you have a severe wound or whatever, it takes a month to knock it down to the next level, and it can be pretty nasty, and it's a lot slower in general, especially because Deadlands is not a game that necessarily is based on like having a team comp, because that's just not really how it's designed.
Right.
So having healers, there are some who can, yes, but when your characters are so limited on what they can build and do in that game, because, even like if you go full blessed or whatever, there's only so many miracles you can actually take. So
yeah, and the blessed healing is the best, and it's not great.
Yeah.
Well, can you send me a link to the Deadlands that you're playing? I'm not being a smartass. I just don't know if it's a different version, because I played the really old one.
I played the original one, because there's the original one and Reloaded.
Oh yeah, I don't know Reloaded.
Yeah, Reloaded uses the Savage Worlds D20 system. I like the older one better, personally. But, and I might be misremembering things, but...
no, I just don't remember the lingering wound. I just don't remember that having to take a month. That's all.
I probably have it in my... I might have it, but, probably now's not the time to dig out that book. But
are you kidding? We have another 3 hours here. No, I'm kidding. I actually have to go soon. Actually, I forgot that I have to go soon. I have to go quite soon.
How soon do you need to go?
Fuck, 10 minutes.
10 minutes? Okay.
Sorry, I have to be somewhere by 6.
Okay, sure. No, then definitely now is not the time to go dig that book out.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you want to be out here by what time? Give me a time, and I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, 5:40.
5:40. Okay. Alrighty.
You okay with
that? So like in games like Pathfinder, I feel like healing is just, I think it's where it should be, and it works for how the game works. And if you want something that's a little bit more like grungier or a little bit more like perilous with wounds and everything like that, I do recommend going out and checking out other games where wounds are, you know, a lot more serious, because in a game that has such healing that Pathfinder does, if you add like a grungier kind of wound system to it, then players are just going to start taking things like restoration, which just removes conditions like enfeeble, clumsy, stupefy, or whatever. And sure, it's burning a spell slot.
But there's more strategy involved.
True to some degree, but that's more just you're inconveniencing your players and forcing them to prepare, because again, this is the Vancian style casting where it's like, well, I can't take these spells today because I need to pack a couple of restorations just in case someone gets injured, which may or may not come up.
Okay, that's a good point, and that feels really bad when you have that unused spell because your GM just didn't make it happen.
Yeah. It's just a hassle, and it's a lot that, like, honestly, I've seen other games do really well with making damage feel impactful, and injuries. Deadlands, again, was another one where it's just like your character just got injured. Unless you were harrowed, you were kind of screwed. You had to sit back and rest, or maybe you had a party member who could actually do something with it. You know, it's just different kind of games. And like some people are like, I like this game though, but I want to add this mechanic. And sure, go ahead. Again, there's people who absolutely love my games, and there's people who actually like legitimately hate my style of running games. Like, it doesn't matter who or what your table does, because people are just going to play the game they want to play, and I think that's completely fine. My only statement is one based on how I feel, but two, it's also just like when you're acting, when you add these things to a game, you have to understand that you're asking your DM to not only run all the characters, run the world, plan the adventures, plan the game, run the stories, do all that kind of stuff, but you're also asking them to keep track of extra systems in a game. And for someone who ran Anima Beyond Fantasy for as long as I did, I made that game my game. People don't like Anima Beyond Fantasy. They like my Anima Beyond Fantasy. I had to.
I would despise base rule Anima because of just the basic description I've received from Cam of how initiative works in Anima. Sounds like a nightmare, and I don't want to touch that. It looks annoying. It's like it's an initiative system where you have to declare your action at the beginning of before initiative starts rolling, and you can just have your turn eaten by stuff. Which
if you get hit,
anti-fun.
That blows.
Yeah, if you get hit, you're put on the defensive and you can't do anything. But you can fight defensively, but that reduces your attack by 30, which in a D100 game is a significant amount. So
this is such a well put together game. I don't know why you guys don't like it.
I liked Anima. I played it for a long time, but it's just a lot of work to maintain and run. When I
went like 5e. You have to add so much to it. It's not the same game.
True, but funny story. We got done with Anima. I moved to 5e, and I was like, oh my god, this game is so easy to run compared to Anima. I mean, to be fair, in D&D, you don't need to know how much 10% of 150 damage is. Or that's a bad one because that's really easy. Let's say 30% of 175 damage. You know, and that's just combat in general, because in Anima, you hit the enemy, and based on how well you hit them, you do a percentage of your weapon strike damage. Granted,
Rift's
it's always
Palladium
in
was like that too.
Yeah.
It's annoying.
But, you know, that's why it's like, and even if you're the GM and you're wanting to do this, you have to ask yourself, do you have the resources to mentally add this thing to your game while simultaneously doing all the other things that GM needs to do? There's a lot of GMs who get really into it, but then they miss things, because even playing the game normally, you miss things, right? But you have a reference guide, the book, you know? So if you're adding a bunch of stuff to your games, you're more likely to miss something, and your players might not have the same reference point as you do because it's not their game, it's not their rules they're adding in or anything like that. It's just a lot of work. If it's what you want to do, again, feel free. I'm not here to tell you how to play the game. I'm only here to give cautionary tales of someone who had to almost rebuild a whole system from the ground up to make it work.
Dude, Foxfire, who's interactive with my channel a lot and on Discord, he's trying to make his own system, and like the last time he sent something to me, it had so much variety and it was so spread out. I'm like, there's just a lot here. I mean, if you're willing to put in that much work, cool, but you could cut out this third, because I don't want to do that.
Yeah. And well, and that's kind of the curse of tabletop. There's so many really good tabletops like Shadowrun that are so poorly like constructed for player use and GM use that playing it for your first few times is an utter nightmare. Zbashu actually, I think, recently made a spoof on Shadowrun because of the frustrations he has with the game, because it's just ridiculous. But
It's those type of games that feel like they're designed by and for uber tabletop fans who who just need that, like, I need this but more for like everything they're playing. So if you're
Well-
like super deep in that shit, it works. But I'm also saying this as someone who played Shadowrun and didn't really like it because I'm not that person.
well, there's also the thing of it just has terrible onboarding for new
That too.
players.
Oh, yes, it does.
Yeah,
I only liked it because I had so many options in my shamanistic satyr. But I didn't interact with other people very easily. The rules don't work well together.
Yeah. So, it's a game that was made to make someone's vision come to life that wasn't taken in consideration onboarding new players and everything like that. And so, even Pathfinder's like original core book is kind of messy when you don't know the game that well. Finding specific rules is really hard in the core book because I
Remaster.
really struggled. Remaster is going to fix that, hopefully. Hopefully
I
for new
hope so.
people. Once you know, you know the game, though.
I know Pathfinder, and the core book fucks with me really bad because I have a really, really hard time sitting down and focusing on one subject, or just focusing on like a rule book is really difficult for me. And Pathfinder's laid out in a way that makes me just kind of glaze over the information. I hate how stat blocks are written out. I hate how it's formatted because I just kind of like glide across the page, not actually reading anything.
Yeah, that's not going to do you any good. You're not going to retain that.
Exactly.
I did that recently with Firebrands. I'm like, why am I reading this? I don't give a damn about the history, so I skipped a few chapters.
Yeah. It can be really hard. Firebrands are also just not my favorite of the factions in the game. They have some
I
cool
find it
stuff.
extremely fascinating. In a faction all about rebellion and rebels, I totally want to interview one of the design team on this. Obviously, we have different passions.
That's fair. No, I mean, that's fair. I just, it's so vague, but I could talk forever on that. We are getting close to your leave time, though.
Yeah.
So you had something you wanted to share with people, if you'd
Oh
like.
God, I forgot. Thank you. I totally wouldn't have remembered by the end.
That's my job as host.
Glue Boy, could you put the link in chat somewhere?
Doing it right now.
Cool, thank you. So this is a random personality trait table that my partner and I created last year, and it is really easy to build a character based on it. Just roll a d100, read the details, and then after you have read what that trait is and the details of it and how it works, just think about how that came about for your character, like cause and effect. And it's a great basis for starting the roleplay aspect of a character, the character's history. It's just a good springboard.
Yeah, I'm always a fan of random tables. As someone who improvs 100% of my sessions, I'll take whatever random tables are, because if you give me fodder, I will make do with anything. Heck, my encounter table I've been using is literally the first edition encounter table, and I'm like, okay, is this in the game? No, but let me find something similar.
It's inspiration, really. It's just a direction.
It's exactly. I mean, that's exactly what encounter tables are, and it's all about sometimes I'll look at it and I'll be like, that's not an encounter I want to do. Let me come up with something else instead. Or let me think of a non-combat encounter. Because not every encounter needs to necessarily be combat. You can definitely do all kinds of other things as well. So having something for your NPCs just so that you can make each one interesting, or at the very least starting point for each one, I think is a really good thing.
Yeah, it's hard to come up with a random thing, especially when you're stressed and working out about all the other details as a GM.
Yeah, I'll definitely post that in the table, or the Bad Luck Gamer official Discord if you have not joined us yet, in the link down below on YouTube or on Twitch. There is a link to the Discord. I will post that also, or Alex can, in the we do community advertising, I think. I don't think there's anything else.
Community advertising. You're doing that sexy voice thing again.
I'm sorry, I can't turn it off. But we'll put it there so you can all check it out in the Discord whenever you want. Anything you want to leave off with? Anything coming up, or anything you want to shout out before you head out today?
No, I've talked about all of it. I appreciate being here. I will be making 2 videos a week as often as I can. I can't always, but that's because of personal life issues. It's not because I don't have a passion for this. So there's more builds, archetypes, interviews, and book reviews coming up.
Awesome. Nice. It's been wonderful having you here. I absolutely... Oh, please go check out our collab video we did over on Jake's channel, Wisdom Check, where we talked about our interesting Thaumaturge / Living Vessel archetype.
Oh, Aralorn made a Living Vessel character build in the comments of that video. It's awesome. It's a beautifully inspired character.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. I think that was super fun. I liked both of our characters, and hopefully, in the future we'll have you on the channel again at some point to chat table talk, and
totally
keep the community connected together. But with that, you're free to go as you will.
Thank you. And it was nice to actually chat with you finally, Glue Boy, because I've heard your videos and your chat in Discord. It's nice to finally have a personality and attitude to go with what you say.
It is important to have that. On Table Talk, I'm a bit more reserved and honest, and in my videos they're meant to be kind of goofy and over-exaggerated opinions. So it's always good to have those little bits of here's the actual personality instead of the heightened YouTube one.
Yeah.
And I will mention it. We will be still streaming for another about 20 minutes or so. So
yeah,
we're not ending quite yet.
I'm off. Thank you guys again. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, no problem. Bye.
Now comes the awkward disconnecting.
All right, 1 second as I resort everything.
Yeah, it's just the old format.
Where is my...
Just
there we go.
No, your webcam right there. Oh, there we go. Now it's normal.
Yep, now we're good. Also, news. We're not going anywhere, anyone, please.
Yeah, we're not ending right now.
I have my LEDs finally,
oh,
so
shit.
I can illuminate mostly this corner over here. I'll turn it on.
Yeah, that corner is problematic. Though, at the very least, since you're going to be in a very static position with just sitting down, you can make do with my favorite tool for green screen work, an opacity mask, and just cut out all those weird corners. That's what I do. If I untab it, there's just a weird squiggly mask over my video footage that fixes all the problems.
Yeah, it doesn't really change too much, but there is that corner is now all properly illuminated back here.
Yeah, the most you'd have to deal with if you wanted it to be a perfect is those wrinkles on the two sides. But...
I struggle with it because I fix it and then it just I don't know. It might just be the clamps are moving.
Yeah,
but
that could be it. It's also ironing the green screen is important if you haven't done that yet. That'll help fix that too.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, for sure, there's some little parts, but I think it's not really that big a deal, especially
No, for
green-
what you're doing.
green screen.
For
in
what you're
general.
doing, no. If it's a problem, you can opacity mask out some of the corners, but it's not that big of a deal.
Let's see here. Oh goodness, I think it's edit filter. What is add filter? See if I can chroma key. Let's see. I forget exactly. I'm just kind of messing with it now for shits and giggles, but
Yeah. The right side's perfect. The left side. I love messing with green screens. It's such a fun little like fiddle. I
It
can't wait.
feels good when you finally get it all like set and done.
So true. I'm gonna be changing my setup soon and actually having it just in a better location. Gonna like track down a better mic, like just increase the quality soon because I find I'm gonna have the chance for it. I'm very excited.
It looks so gross.
What the? Oh my god, that's horrific.
That was horrific. I'll have to mess with it. To be fair, this. Oh, actually, let me turn that off. Please, filters, edit filters.
Also, hell yeah, glad to hear that Cam's been very influential on you to get you into Pathfinder. It's a cool game, and also I can say, same. He pulled me into this shit. It's immensely fun. Hopefully you got some good games in your horizon.
Yeah, thanks, Renan, so much. That does mean a lot. It's, I mean, I know you're just dropping by, so, you know, go if you need to. But, it's a lot of what I want to do is I wanted to do Pathfinder, but a little bit more interesting, a little bit more from the player perspective, and not just like a rules agnostic kind of style or anything like that. And as well, Lancer, like so many people are so thankful for the Lancer videos that have been coming out,
That's good.
and we'll be actually moving soon to why this mech is awesome or why this frame is awesome.
If you better say nothing but good things about the Rayleigh.
I mean, that's
Or else
pretty
I'll get
easy to
upset.
do in general, honestly.
Yeah, because the Rayleigh's the best mech.
A lot of the mechs are just really good. I
True.
think they're all pretty stellar at what they want to do.
A lot
And-
of them are solid. I'm not a fan of a lot of the Smith Shimano stuff. But that's just because I don't like sleek mech design. It's like I've been pulled into a slight Twitter discourse just from like 40k lore knowledge. Someone was making a post about how like Gundam shit would solo Imperium of Man stuff, and I was like, yeah, probably.
What?
Yeah, like how Gundam battle suits are just like insanely cool and will destroy some 40k mechs. And I saw a Twitter like a video he posted of a Gundam in action. I was like, yeah, 40k stuff can't really do that. And I was just like talking about it, like, yeah, no, I think that if like a 1v1 in Eldar Wraith Knight could hold up to a Gundam battle suit, but I don't know much else. And then it's people being like throwing Gundam terms at me, and I'm like, what the fuck does this mean? I don't like
Yeah.
Gundam. I hate how all the Gundams look. Like, that's why I'm just not into it. 'Cause I
Yeah.
hate mecha anime.
I don't like mecha anime either. I love mechs. I just don't like mecha anime. Just never been my thing.
Yeah, and like I know nothing about Gundam except some of them got beam swords, and the video I saw was from a POV shot from the guy being killed by a Gundam, and I was like, this is terrifying. God damn, is this what the show is?
Also, it's such a nonsensical conversation because like the whole point of Warhammer is mass war. like war done on a massive scale.
Yeah, like a
Like,
stupidly massive scale.
it's like, how many times have you seen, like, it's not like a 1v1 versus each unit in Warhammer. It's
Yeah,
like you'll
exactly.
see like a knight waiting in, and there's a bunch of Tyranids just jumping up all over it, and it's like cutting through and blasting them off or whatever. But then like eventually they just overrun it and take it down. That's Warhammer. So
Yeah.
it's like, can a Gundam solo a mech in Warhammer? Sure. Can any setting of Gundam compete against the Empire of Man?
With how stupidly
No.
big it is. Yeah. And that was the thing. I
Not
was
even
like,
close.
I feel like the original tweet was arguing in perspective of like of just fighting the mechs in 40k. And I'm like, yeah,
Right.
I think a Gundam could take on a Titan in pretty easily from the videos I've seen of on that Twitter thread of being like, that seems like a destroy a Titan. Titans are pretty cool, but like they're not that fast. They can't do that. Imperium believes in accuracy by sheer volume of fire. That's the strategy for all humans. But like, I was particularly limiting it. It was like in the idea of, all right, in a mech 1v1, because I think it's a more interesting conversation than like, because yeah, if it's the entire Gundam universe versus the entire 40k universe, 40k's just got the numbers. If it's in a vacuum, because the reason they can't do that now is because there's like 8 other factions waiting for the Imperium to do it so they can kill them.
Now, here's a good question. Do you think a Primarch could handle a Gundam or not?
I think it'd be interesting to see, and it depends on the Primarch.
Because, like, do you think a Primarch could handle, like, a Knight, for instance?
Yes, Angron has thrown a Knight before. Picked it up and chucked it. I think if I had to make a determining of, like, here's what would work. Also, Psychic, yeah, that it gives me a second one. The 2 Primarchs I think that could deal with a Gundam are Sanguinius in his Siege of Terra level, where he is peak Primarch strength, insanely fucking powerful, and like stupidly jacked, and also can see the future. So he could just like catch a Gundam, like if it flies past him, because they look fast. He could, and he also can fly. And then Magnus, because I doubt they have psychic barriers or anything, and one of the methods that the Imperium uses to kill Tau, because they also, like, some of those suits are really hard to penetrate, they just get a psyker to murder the pilot by psychically entering his mind and making his brain explode. Like, that's one of their strats. So, like, I think Magnus and also Magnus can fuck with his, like, how he can look however he wants and just make himself like 100 feet tall and become a mech or a kaiju in that fight. So I don't know. Those are the 2 where I give it to them.
I think it's an interesting conversation, because I think a Primarch has the firepower of a Gundam, but compacted. Typically.
Yeah, and the only
Gundams
other problem
aren't designed to fight ground troops. They're designed to fight other Gundams. So.
And also, I think it's just like they might have the raw power behind it. It's just they can't physically be that fast or like all fly or anything. I feel like a Primarch could lead a battle to destroy a Gundam, though, in a phenomenal way, because they're leaders at the end of the day, too.
True. Mostly. I wouldn't say Angron's much of a leader.
I mean, he's very motivating with his 48 hours to conquer a planet or I kill you.
Yeah.
So that works.
That doesn't make you a leader, that makes you a dictator.
Hey, if it matters, all the world eaters love Angron. So.
Yeah, I guess. Well,
works for them.
That's such a bad argument, because all Space Marines love their gene daddies.
Yeah, but it works for the World Eaters. I don't think it works for other factions, but Angron is a fantastic World Eaters leader. But I think the conversation that makes it interesting, I don't think the whole like, all right, 2 universes in a vacuum, who would win? That's boring. I think prominent characters fighting each other is a more interesting thing in this argument, only because there's such different levels of scaling, because you're scaling with nitty-gritty bullshit sci-fi with anime bullshit. Both of them are complete different levels. Like, anime stuff is just ridiculous, over-the-top anime, and then Warhammer is very, like, it's nitty-gritty mass warfare, but with dumb shit inside doing that mass warfare. I think they're on different like competing levels in that aspect that I think is fun.
Yeah. Well, it's always more and more, especially recently after like understanding how battles are never done in a vacuum, especially when talking about like Pathfinder 2E, how people are always like fighter this, fighter that, but in a lot of situations, fighters' firepower gets dropped pretty heavily. If anything is just a little irregular, like difficult terrain or something like that, or flying enemies,
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of situations where it's really just never gonna be that simple. It's like, why death battle? Now that I think about it more and more, I just don't like, because right, there was like the whole Alucard versus Dio,
Oh yeah, true.
which it's like the only way Dio wins is if for some reason Alucard goes to level 0 and gets rid of all the extra lives he has to try to overwhelm Dio with an army of entities, or whatever. And I just don't think that's possible. I just think that Alucard would just go mano a mano and try to fight him a million lives worth, because that just would substantially be better for him in every way conceivable.
And eventually Dio would just lose because he at least doesn't have those do-overs that Alucard has. And also the other thing, eventually Dio's going to get worn down, because there are moments in the fight with Jotaro where he gets injured in such a method where like he gets a massive concussion and is like actively like, oh, I cannot stand, like my head is bleeding, I can't get up. Like that happens to him, and he will feel that.
That fight is so... It very much represents how logic isn't a thing in JoJo's. Because, right, isn't like the whole thing with Dio is that he's immune to most types of damage?
Most types, but vampires in JoJo can still be affected by physical damage. It just takes a lot more. And he, after that too, is honestly, just in my memory of all the scenes with Dio, the biggest blow he's gotten, like the strongest force, because it's from Star Platinum, directly punching him in the face, which is with the raw power to break through like giant things of diamond. Like he can just do that, and so from that force, the only other thing he had to deal with before that was Jonathan stabbing him with a sword, which, you can deal with.
I mean, I think he's been shot before, hasn't he, as well?
Yeah, but, it's typical anime stuff of guns are nothing.
Yeah.
Unless it's
see, that's the thing, is, like, that fight is, like, I think at one point he gets injured by, like, knives or something to some significant enough degree.
Dio doesn't.
Does he not get damaged by one of the knives?
He uses knives.
I remember he's the one who uses the knives. Anyway, it's kind of, again, it's nonsensical.
Yeah. It's anime stuff. I mean, he loses a leg, but like he just can retach that. But like brain damage, it's a bit more complicated to fix your brain as a vampire. That's the main problem. It's his brain is a different beast than attaching a leg and just drinking some blood. Because he fixed his brain problem when he drank somebody, so he was fine. It's just in that moment, and against Alucard, he wouldn't have that luxury.
Yeah, so it's like, but right, can you think of scenarios that it possibly could be Alucard? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just things where like, it's like Gundam versus Primarch. If they're in a square box fighting field, probably Gundam. But if you're talking about like a war-torn battlefield, which both of them would be found on, I can easily see a Primarch sneaking up and jumping on a Gundam and ganking whoever's inside,
Gilliman would lead such a good battle strategy to destroy the Gundam.
And
he'd be so good at it.
And it's like, there's so many situations. It's always like, Batman could solo anyone with prep time, right? Prep time is just situational.
Yeah.
It's like one of the most crazy characters in DC, right, is Lobo. Lobo is
Yeah.
just dumb. He's meant to be just dumb. He just
He's
kills
goofy.
people. He has grenades. He can't die. Every one of his cells of his body can just form a new Lobo, right? Anyone with the ability to portal into like a different dimension just instantly beats Lobo because Lobo's dumb. And he's just like, "Hey, what you doing there, you punk?" And then just portaled and he's gone in a different dimension. Like if he went up against like a Primarch, well, probably one of the Sai Primarchs, just boom into the warp gone. And despite how hard he is to kill, how powerful he is, he's just in the warp, which isn't a location actually. It's everywhere and nowhere at the same time, you know.
I feel like Lobo would be dumb enough to be able to survive just being in the warp because there are characters that can.
He can't. He wouldn't go mad by the warp.
No,
He's
too dumb.
He's too dumb, and he's just like, man, that was quite the trip I just went on.
It's like
something that would drive a normal human utterly insane.
Yeah, there's a something like Thruk Demon Killer, the orc that's currently in the realm of Korn in a giant coliseum murdering demons endlessly because he and Korn think it's fun.
Yeah,
like that's what happens. It's like man, it's so annoying with like power scaling. I hate power scaling as much as I think it's an interesting concept of like how would such and such universe deal with such and such. I really like the discussion of 40k factions entering other sci-fi worlds because I think it's super interesting in how shitty every faction of 40k is, and even the nicest factions, the Tau, some chapters of the Space Marines, are villains in a different sci-fi universe. Like you put the Tau in Star Trek, they're a major threat to humans in Star Trek, or just the Federation, because Tau, they're very nice, but they are trying to annex literally everything and kind of put you under some pseudo mind control. That part's interesting, but power scaling's so annoying because then you get like some weird discussions, or the annoying thing Death Battle's done where they imply that Ben 10 would lose against certain characters when he literally has Alien X, the power scaling of I can just create universes.
Yeah.
Like it gets dumb eventually.
Yeah. It's so nonsensical.
Yeah, or like, oh yeah, the Omnitrix, you can just cut off his hand and the Omnitrix will fall away. It's like, no, it specifically has things prepared to make sure that can't happen. The fight with fucking Green Lantern and Ben 10, that was another one where I'm like, this is the fucking dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, there's literally scenes in Ben 10 where like that's prevented because the Omnitrix has a thing for that. The only ones I'm happy that they've done and gotten right is the Homelander versus Omni-Man, because that it was perfectly in character for both of them with how shitty they both are, and One Punch Man versus Popeye, because Popeye would solo anyone because it's Popeye.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't watch the Homelander versus Omni-Man. Who won?
The fight is really fun because it perfectly encompasses both characters. Homelander being like a slimy shit, like in his home, like, hey, like there's only room for one of us here, you're ruining my brand. And then just the sigh from Omni-Man of I'm going to feed you your own heart, and then immediately starts fighting him. And then it's like
watch it.
It's a good video, and also it's true. Homelander has zero fighting experience. Omni-Man is a fucking warrior, and in mid-fight is teaching Homelander how to take a punch.
Yeah,
it's like that part, those moments where you're like, all right, you actually understand both source material. I'm very happy. And then you get the ones where you're like, did you? There are multiple parts in said show that refute the ending you just came up with.
You know who's the absolute worst when it comes to hypothetical battles? Goku fans.
Oh my Jesus Christ. I like Goku, but come on, guys.
I don't like Goku. I think Goku is a very mid character in general. Like, is he fun? Yeah, sure. Like, I don't think he's bad by any means, but he's not interesting. But
I prefer Vegeta, but I like seeing Goku win.
Vegeta is infinitely more interesting than Goku. It's not even funny. Like, okay, I don't dislike Goku. I think Goku can be fine, if somewhat inconsistent throughout his writing history, honestly. Or maybe that's just the difference between watching the English version and the Japanese version.
There are some purists that'll claim that, yeah.
The English version of Goku's voice, the guy like has so much like, he sounds way more like just and more like I'm fighting as the side of good kind of thing. While Japanese Goku is more like I'm fighting because it's fun, like just through tone of voice and everything like that. I also just don't like Goku's voice in Japanese. It's so weird.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Dragon Ball in its original.
I think
there's like a few voices that are better.
Everyone is fine but Goku.
Actually, every Saiyan voice is like that. Piccolo in Frieza's Japanese voice is fucking peak.
Yeah, Frieza's very good. Vegeta's isn't that bad.
It's still the same thing. It's high pitch, like
really.
old woman, I think, voices them. I know at least the Goku family is all voiced by the same person, and she's a very famous voice actor in Japan. But
yeah,
obviously.
I don't know. But yeah, Goku fanboys, my god, they are the most nonsensical arguers, and also don't understand like Goku at all. It's so ridiculous how they will fight tooth and nail for Goku, but they don't understand. Goku literally gets his ass kicked all the fucking time in fights. Like every villain he's gone against, he has been beaten pretty senselessly, and there's plenty of times where he just makes a mistake and, you know, just like eats shit to someone who didn't deserve to do that to him. Like fighting Kale and Kefla in the tournament of power, who they're both like inexperienced Saiyans who just learned how to be Super Saiyan like in that fight or whatever, and he can turn into a god. Like he has a Super Saiyan god form, and they pushed him to the brink until his newest form came and let him win the fight. But like,
which that Ultra Instinct surf the beam with a Kamehameha was the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Cool, and I agree from an entertainment standpoint. Goku's fun to watch fight. He always finds an interesting way. But there's so many times he gets his ass kicked, and it's just like, in a lot of these hypothetical scenarios, like, that's just enough for the character to just die and the game to be over.
Yeah, so, there's and also just Goku fans out there who are the the power scalers. Just rest easy with the knowledge that Popeye would solo anyone from Dragon Ball.
Right.
Because Popeye cannot be beaten. He's able to dodge God erasing the universe in the Popeye world.
True.
Because the simple truth of he eats his spinach.
Yep. And he's Popeye the Sailor Man.
Yeah, he beat up God and turned the universe back on because he eats the spinach.
Yep.
It's the fun thing of Popeye is cartoon logic, and also the fun part, if anyone tries to argue otherwise, there's literally an episode of Super where Goku loses to somebody because of cartoon logic. That's how they fight, and
Arya.
That's the point. Yeah, the point of it is you can't really fight cartoon logic because it's cartoon logic.
Yeah.
You have to out cartoon somebody.
I also absolutely hate that, like, Goku's like, I hate when people say they're universe level or planet level based on like their destructive power or whatever, and it's like not taking into consideration that, one, if Goku is really planet or universe level or whatever the fuck you want to say, then every time he punches someone they should just turn into pink mist, right? That doesn't happen though. You know why?
Yeah.
Because it's not as simple as he could punch someone with that amount of force. Goku many times has punched things as hard as he could, and the whole planet didn't blow up. Yeah, sure, maybe he can Kamehameha and like blow a hole into the center of a planet, but like that's a very specific situation. It's a beam attack. a somewhat slow beam attack, honestly. Granted, like DBZ speed is like canonically much faster than you can see, even though plenty of times normal people are watching them fight.
A lot of times they're watching,
commentating.
and then they're like, I know they made a joke of that in TTS or not TTS, DBZ Abridged, where they're like, "Can you follow this? No. Why are you still looking at it? You know, I just want to do something. I want to feel included."
Yeah, Dragon Ball's still going, by the way.
Yeah, it is. I know there's a new thing coming out. And also, I heard the superhero movie was pretty good. I heard it was good.
I mean, like Dragon Ball is just one of those timeless things that it just never gets bad.
I enjoy Dragon Ball. It's not my favorite shonen at all.
Yeah.
I think of all the shonen I've watched, my favorite is still JoJo and One Piece. That's just because I like how they're formatted. I also like that JoJo specifically sets itself up so it doesn't have to deal with the stupid universe scaling like a Dragon Ball problem, where it just kind of resets every part, so you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, silly.
I like that aspect, and part 9 for JoJo is very fun. I've been keeping up with it. It's very fun to see a protagonist in JoJo not have a typical punchy stand. I can't wait till it transforms into that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, because all his stand does is make it rain, but heavy rain. He made it so it rained really hard on the carpet.
Is it called Heavy Rain?
It's called November Rain.
Okay.
He made it rain really hard in Rohan's house, and when he stepped in this part of his carpet, the floor broke under his foot, and he could capture him and like tie him up. Because Rohan Kashibe is back in part 9.
Yeah, Rohan's just one of those really interesting characters that must have just been super popular in Japan.
No, it's purely because Araki loves Rohan. That's all it is. He just is obsessed with. He's his favorite character he's made, so he puts him in whatever he can. He doesn't care about the popularity of his characters. He'll kill them like regardless.
Well, I mean, I understand that part, but yeah, obviously because Rohan shows up in a ton of stuff.
Yeah, he has. There's a live action movie for him that just dropped where he goes to the Louvre. There's his side series. It was a manga and OVA series that thus spoke Kashibe Rohan, and he's appeared in many other things.
I will admit, as much as I dislike JoJo for how little the universe makes any kind of sense whatsoever, I will say it is just genuinely entertaining.
It's very entertaining because I guess I view it all differently because like I will just sit and clap for the cool beams and the cool powers. I don't need super compelling characters. I like JoJo because the world is stupid, the logic makes no sense, but I think the characters are fun and interesting, and the power sets that they have are weird. Because no one, like, after part 3, just stands still and punches each other. It's all really weird, hyper-specific interactions with their powers. It's the fun, like, story of watching people find loopholes for their own abilities.
Yeah,
and that's the part that's fun.
It's literally watching tabletop players break the game.
They're making builds and they have their build and they're like, DM, can I do this thing? They're technically the rules say I can't. Don't say I can't. You're like, I fucking guess. All right.
Yeah, that's pretty much
the fun
JoJo.
of it. That's what I like about JoJo.
It's entertaining. I will honestly admit, I've watched many clips. I've watched almost the complete second half of Stardust Crusaders.
Yeah, the second half of Stardust Crusaders is the better part of it. Once they get to Egypt, it significantly gets better.
Yeah, and I would genuinely watch more. The only reason why I never do is just it never keeps my attention because there's nothing compelling in the narrative to do so. It's just like junk food, right? It's like you eat it because it tastes good, but if you eat a whole bag, you'll feel sick. I guess it's not the same because I won't feel sick, but like I'll eventually just get tired of watching it and shelve it until later. I also Go ahead.
Go on. You keep.
I also watched the first season of Stone Ocean or whatever that one was called, and again, interesting, but also like I'm not super compelled to watch it anymore. You know.
Yeah, I get you. I personally hold that I think Araki can write some good stories. I think he's a good writer, and there's a lot of disservice done to him. Of like the more and more I look into it, and I remember just episode stuff. It's like the whole Araki forgot joke is so dumb because a lot of the times, no, he didn't. It's JoJo fans have no media literacy. That's the real problem that it breaks down to. And so
I don't know. I think I disagree because there's just a lot
there's
of things that
parts.
don't make sense. I've
Yeah, there are
watched the
parts that are
videos.
goofy.
I watched
Yeah.
the videos. I just disagree with some of the points because, like, from a rationale standpoint, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's more of the part of if a character says a thing, like, I don't know, rules of universe, which in a universe that's goofy. I will posit, though, that I think Part 7 and Part 8 are legitimately really well written. I think Part 7's storyline is really engaging, and the characters are phenomenal to the point where the villain of Part 7 is my favorite JoJo villain. Funny Valentine is such a cool character.
Oh.
I love him because he's actually interesting in the aspect of I think he's the one JoJo villain where you could argue that he's not super evil. He's doing something. He's doing some evil things in the progress of trying to protect the United States forever. Because his plan would directly save the entire country at the cost of the main characters.
Yeah.
So to that aspect, I think he's an interesting character, and I think his philosophy is really interesting and well delivered. And the Part 8 is just fun. And Part 9 fucking rules so far. I think it's really cool.
My favorite villain so far, to be fair, which I don't have the same knowledge, is the bomber hand guy, even though he's a freak. Kira, yeah.
Yeah,
I thought it was Kira.
Well, Kira's great because he's just creepy.
He's creepy, but he's strangely super, like, charismatic at the same time.
He's funny that he's so charismatic because he directly doesn't want to be. Because he wants to not stand out. He's third place and everything. And also, there's just so many parts of Kira that are great. Like, the one that repeatedly plays in my head is the scene where he walks into someone's apartment and does the, like, walk past explode to the guy.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Like, oh, he's so dope.
But
Kira is my second favorite.
That's going to be it for us. We've kind of gone over our time today.
We have.
Just talking bullshit at the end. You know, that's TableTalk for you. Thank y'all so much for watching. Is there anything you want to leave us with before we head out?
Yeah, if you are a newcomer to the channel, like, go check out my YouTube. It's Glue Boy on YouTube. It's also linked in Cam's YouTube. I have been on a fun series cataloging the Chaos Gods. I just put out a video on the secret 5th Chaos God. There's some extra bits there. And the next video I got coming up, it's going to come out on Monday. Very excited for it. It's about the Emperor of Mankind.
That's going to be a good one.
Going into it. I'm excited because I'm going through a lot of info on who the Emperor actually is, some of the compounding bits. And,
that's a lot to do
There's
full research on him because he's just mentioned everywhere.
I'm cutting down some information because you have to.
Yeah.
But primarily also it's me covering a really annoying thing where people get upset at a character who she kind of caused the scattering of the Primarchs. And they're like, oh, it's all her fault. Like, she sucks. And it's like, well, she's pretty, like, understandable why she did that. Because she saw the Emperor mistreating the Primarchs in their test tubes. And was like, hell yeah, I can't wait to make these children fully dependent on me and not treat them like human beings. And then she was like, that feels kind of fucked.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Plus also machination of eldritch entities.
Yeah, she wanted to save them, and then the Chaos Gods kind of tricked her.
There's not much a mortal can do in that situation, so...
Yeah. Even a perpetual like that she was, it's still not much you can do when literally Zinch is whispering in your ear, the man who's seen everything that will happen and has happened. Like, it's the whole thing. But yeah, I'm excited for that video. I think it's going to be fun, and I'm worried it's going to be long, so let's see.
Yeah.
The script is already getting long.
As for me, tomorrow is Magus for Pathfinder Bites, which is going to be a good one. I think that's a class a lot of people really need some info on for sure.
It needs a short form, like, concise thing.
Yeah, and also that there's just people I think who get a misconception of what Magus is and can have not fun with it because they're playing it wrong, typically.
I think that's what I did.
So, that's coming out, and then if you've all noticed, last Saturday I released a short, but it wasn't a short, because apparently YouTube doesn't do anything longer than a minute for shorts, which is annoying, but okay. So a lot of them are not going to be super interesting. I'm mostly focusing on like talking about conditions, what they do, short form. That is just like a preamble to actual short form content. I need to, because the flat-footed one, 2-minute one, took me like 4 hours to edit because I had to do like a bunch of research on how shorts work and all that kind of stuff. And then it's a completely different editing style than I'm used to. So I'm doing conditions because they're super easy, super short form. Someone might find it useful, and it will become something bigger at a later point. And as well, buckle up because more Hell Knights are coming. And next month, we are getting Rage of Elements. And I'm going to be on top of those archetypes as soon as I get access and permission to talk about them. So if you want to see that, please subscribe and join the Discord. Subscribing will help. Joining the Discord will give you a notification whenever a video goes live, so you will not miss those. It's going to be really big. I can't wait. Rage of Elements is going to be such a good book. I can already feel... Like, I had a banger tweet the other day talking about, like, multi-classing with kineticists and what it's like. And so many people jumped in on that tweet. So I know a lot of people are super hyped about it.
I am. I'm immensely hyped. The moment it drops, I'm going to be pouring through that shit.
But that's going to be it from us. Thank y'all so much for watching. And I guess we'll say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night.